The baseball season is off and rolling in College Station with high expectations for first-year head coach Michael Earley. Texas A&M has gotten off to an interesting start. Helping us break it all down, talk about it, Richard Zane of TexAgs, the managing editor there, and, of course, a baseball junkie like myself and many of you out there watching. Richard, appreciate you taking the time, man. It is a pleasure to have you on and really excited to chat with you.
Of course, Chris, I appreciate it. And interesting is a good word choice. Slow is another one. And the one that I think we decided was most relevant, at least inside our office, is choppy to describe the way the Aggies have played through 7 games now. So,
yeah, like we mentioned, Richard, before we got going, 5-2 overall. Certainly the sky is not falling, right? The season is just underway. But a lot has happened in the first 2 weeks or so of the season. I want to start first, Richard. I wanted to make this a focal point of the conversation. And then the midweek happened, and there's just so much other stuff going on. But we got to mention the Gavin Grahovac injury, I feel like was the big news of the week. Obviously, kid wins freshman of the year a season ago. Expected to be a big piece right there along with Jay Slavalette, and it's really unfortunate how it unfolded. Obviously, he tried to battle through the injury, could not do it. Your thoughts on how this impacts this Aggies team? Do you feel like can they still achieve their ultimate goal, which is winning the national championship without him? And how are they going to do that? Who are the guys you expect to fill in with Grahovac being out?
So first things first, I want to go ahead and say that, obviously thoughts going out to Gavin, right? He's such a competitor. He's such a young kid. And he's a good guy. He comes into our office every now and then, does interviews with us. He's super gracious with his time. So obviously hoping the best for him and his family as he gets on the road to recovery and hopefully comes back, just as strong or even stronger. You mentioned it, the SEC Freshman of the Year last season, 23 home runs, an A&M freshman record, right? He broke Jay Slavallette's record from the year before. But yeah, dude, it's obviously a huge blow, right? Anytime you lose an All-American from the top of your lineup, because that's where Grahovac was playing, you're going to waffle a little bit, right? You don't know exactly what to expect. You're going to have to move some pieces around to replace the production. Are you going to be able to replace the power that he brings with that bat? Probably not. But we've seen Wyatt Hensler in 7 games as an Aggie, right? He owns the Ivy League home run record from his time at Penn. He actually hits a home run in his first start as the A&M third baseman in Grahovac's place last night. He's been a really bright spot for the A&M offense that has otherwise gotten off to a slow start. And then, because Hensler has to move from second base to third base, who do they plug in up the middle next to Caden Kent? We saw Sawyer Farr, a true freshman, that gets a lot of comparisons to Braden Shoemaker. And if you're a Texas A&M fan out there, that's from the MLB.com comparisons, not from the guys at TexAgs. So that's a nice comparison if you're an Aggie fan, right? He's the only other SEC freshman of the year to come through the program. But, he's, you can expect some growing pains with a true freshman, even one as talented as Sawyer Farr at second base. Or is it going to be a Yamal George? Is Terrence Keel II going to play second base? It's going to be interesting to see how they shuffle things around and who really takes control of the opportunity that is being given to them because Grahovac's going to be out. And it's going to be a many number of guys until someone really takes it and runs with it. So very curious to see how it shakes out. As far as can they win the ultimate goal without Grahovac, why not, right? This is a team that last year in a super regional, in game 1 of the super regional, lost Braden Montgomery against Oregon. It's an Oregon team that was super talented and certainly capable of getting to Omaha and making a run once they got to the Men's College World Series. A&M fought through that injury, fought through an injury to Shane Sadeo, and were within, I believe it was 7 outs in game 2 from winning the program's first national championship. Now, granted, that was much further down the line as far as the season goes when that injury happened versus this one. But, guys can step up, and this is baseball, and I think that it's certainly possible someone can. And the road back to Omaha and the road to a national championship gets a little more difficult. You have to compound the fact that Grahovac is out with the fact that we haven't yet seen Caden Sorrell. He's dealing with a hamstring pull. Coach Michael Earley said Tuesday night that he's probably not going to play this weekend in Houston, might not even play next weekend against New Mexico State. They're being super cautious with him because they know they need him back for the SEC gauntlet, and that's going to be a big piece of the offensive puzzle too. So it's kind of plug and play right now that Grahovac's out, and as we're waiting for Caden Sorrell's return, but that they were such a high betting favorite coming into the year that they're probably still among the top 15 teams that could potentially win it all. And you know as well as anybody, this is baseball, and all you got to do is get into the field of 64 to have a chance. Ole Miss says hello from 2022. So, yeah, this is certainly a team still capable of it, although the road obviously got a little bit rougher with the news we found out on Monday.
And Richard, you mentioned A&M being the betting favorite, and really it felt like the overwhelming favorite coming into the season, ranked number one in essentially every preseason poll, and despite having a first-year head coach. Do you feel like coming in, because again, we're sitting here talking about the Aggies getting off to a quote-unquote slow start. They're 5-2. They lost their final game of a 3-game set against a pretty solid Cal Poly team. You know, they lose the midweek, which you never want to do, but we all know Texas State, very stingy in the midweek. They live, it seems like, to upset the big boys in those midweek games. So far from an unforgivable sin. Do you feel like we're almost at a place where it's like the Aggies came into the season and the expectations are so high they're nearly like impossible to achieve? Is that fair to say? Because again, I feel like it's interesting the start they've gotten off to, but we are nitpicking the heck out of it because of the preseason number one ranking, what they did last year, maybe what happened last summer a little bit, year one of Michael Earley, the guys that came back. It does kind of feel like to a point we are over-evaluating it a little bit, and the expectations coming in. Because, again, they won their first 5 in a row, but even then there were gripes because why are you winning a one-run game? Why aren't you scoring 10 runs a game? Like, it does kind of feel like we're over-evaluating it just a little bit.
I think so. They came into the season, they were ranked number one in every single college baseball, at least reputable college baseball poll. So you're the consensus number one team in the nation. You're a team that was 1 win away from winning a title last year. You come back, you've got Jace Lavalette, who's the number 2 overall prospect in the upcoming draft per MLB.com. You've got Ryan Prager, who is the most decorated returning starting pitcher in the league, in college baseball's best league. Now, he doesn't overpower you like we've seen guys like Skeens and Hagen Smith in the past, but he really does a great job of pitching. And then you've got Justin Lampkin, who really burst on the scene last year in Omaha, and Miles Patton, who's a fantastic third starter for you, and he's really proved it in his first 2 starts at A&M. So you've got really, really solid starting pitching. Then you've got Lavalette. Hayden Schott hit over 330 last year in college in the SEC, in the nation's best league. He's hit everywhere he's been, whether it be his junior college or Columbia, and now at A&M. And then you had a guy like Gavin Grahovac, who's not going to play anymore this year. Caden Sorrell has a ton of expectations surrounding him. And you have an influx of really talented, whether it be transfers or newcomers, right? We've seen Terrence Keel II has taken off in this fan base's mind just because of how electric he is on the base pads and defensively. We see him cover a ton of ground in the outfield when he's playing defensively, whether it be right field or left field. I'm not sure if he made SportsCenter's top 10 last night, but he had a fantastic catch in the 9th inning of a game that A&M obviously lost to Texas State. But there's a ton of pieces around him to be excited about, and there's reason for the expectations that they were dealt this year, right? The expectations are fair. This is a team that you're saying national championship or bust. You either win the national championship or you're a failure. That's pretty unreasonable, right? Like I'm a huge Los Angeles Dodger fan. Like, I bleed Dodger blue like Tommy Lasorda, and I know going into 2025 that it's World Series championship or bust. That doesn't mean I'm not going to find ways to enjoy the 162 games before pulling my hair out in the postseason. You still got to find ways to enjoy this Texas A&M team, even if they're not clicking on all cylinders yet, because it seems like they're kind of dealing with the weight of expectations a little bit. It seems like their approaches at the plate, instead of playing a team game offensively, it's 9 individuals pressing. You can see different approaches from each and every guy that goes up there. You saw that on Tuesday night against Texas State. It obviously didn't work. They scored 3 runs. 2 of them were solo shots in the first. They didn't score another run until they were down to their last out in the ninth. And the finale against Texas State, Hayden Schott had an RBI single in the 3rd inning. They go 0 for their last 19, got 1 base runner. Something's wrong with the approach offensively, and I think it has much more to do with what's going on in the batter's box as opposed to what's going on the mound. Although I don't want to take anything away to the Cal Poly starting pitching. They were fantastic throughout the weekend. And then, of course, we saw what Jesus Tovar and Alex Valentin were able to do for the Bobcats last night. They were brilliant in holding A&M down. But the approach isn't where it needs to be. It seems like this team is still searching for its identity. Right, in 2022, we had the team. They were the Pringles team in College Station. Winning is like Pringles, right? You can't just have one. The actual quote's about Lay's potato chips, but they messed that one up. Although Pringles, I'm sure, didn't hate the free sponsorship. In 2023, it came around a little bit later. It was a team that entered the season with a ton of expectations, just like this team does. They were slow out of the gate, but they found their way. And the team really latched on to it. Was like the laundry cart or whatever that you find in a hotel, right? And they made that their thing. Last year, it was good. So I don't know what it's going to be in 2025 for these Aggies, or who's going to be the spark plug, who's going to rally the troops, but that is coming. I think we can expect that. You played college ball, Chris. Like, if you're going to be around these guys for X number of hours each and every day for the next 5 months, eventually you're going to have to learn to love each other, and I think they will. And they'll take that love and they'll turn it into results on the field. So the expectations a little too high. They're trying their hardest to live up to them, and it seems like they're pressing, but it's still a club that's capable of reaching them if they're able to put it all together. And there's certainly still more than enough time for them to do that. We're only 2 weeks into the year, so no reason to panic whatsoever.
Richard, pressing, I think a good word you mentioned there. It does seem like they are pressing a little bit. You mentioned swinging the stick on the mound. I've read and seen and heard different concerns from Aggie fans everywhere. Concerns with, again, the approach, the overall identity of the offense, like you mentioned, and the bullpen I know has had some struggles. What's the greater concern for you? What's the thing that you think is going to work itself out when you look at Texas A&M right now?
So last night, I think there are two concerns to come out of the loss to Texas State, and both of them are equally fair. One is the offensive approach, and I think we just touched on it a little bit. When you've got guys like Jace Lavalette, who's hit 20 home runs in back-to-back seasons, he's that top prospect. I'm going to go ahead and bank on him turning it around, right? He's getting breaking ball and change up to death right now. Eventually, he's going to learn how to hit them, and then you're going to have to pick your poison, fastball or off speed, and he's going to be able to hit both of them out of the ballpark. I'm going to bet on a guy like Hayden Schott, right? He's gotten off to a slow start. He looks very similar to how he did last year in the College Station Regional against Texas. He had a terrible game in a game that A&M ended up winning in extra innings against the arch rivals, but he really turned it on after that. Something tells me, and it's his track record everywhere he's been, he has been able to hit, that he's going to be able to pick it up. Wyatt Hensler looks fantastic from the jump. I still believe that Caden Kent is going to be able to recapture that postseason magic that he had last year. Maybe now that he's in the leadoff spot, that does him a little bit more of a service. But the offensive approach is going to come around. But that's really what's been holding them back early on in the season. Now, granted, they've had some pretty terrible weather conditions to have to hit through, although the other teams had to deal with those too. So it's not much of an excuse. On the mound, I don't want anything I say now to be tied to A&M starting pitching, because Ryan Prager, Justin Lampkin, Miles Patton, those dudes have been fantastic. Last weekend, they posted a 0.00 perfect ERA against Cal Poly, and they only got one decision out of the three of them. So offense hasn't really been doing much to help them out. As it relates to the bullpen, that's where the biggest question mark lies, right? Because you lost a guy like Evan Aschenbeck, last year's National Stopper of the Year, and then Chris Cortez, a third-round pick of the Anaheim Angels, because I refuse to call them the Los Angeles Angels. He's a fireballer. The slider was fantastic. So those are really your two guys. But A&M's bullpen last year kind of relied on those two, and then they got some help from Josh Stewart, who's back for another year, although he's banged up to start the year. And then Brad Rudis was really good. So they've got pieces around them. They just need the guys to take the next step. They really like Clayton Freshcorn. Granted, he blew the save on Sunday evening against Cal Poly. They really like Brad Rudis. They really like guys like Wesson Moss, Isaac Morton. I'm going to forget some names here. We saw Josh Stewart slip on the mound on a wet surface on Saturday. He's going to be out this week, potentially next weekend, but everything I've heard is that he's going to be back and be a major piece of that bullpen. So they've got the guys. I think what we saw on Tuesday night against Texas State is a lot of this coaching staff, Michael Earley, Jason Kelly, trying to figure out who they can trust. Keep in mind, this is also an A&M team that's lost a ton of innings, a ton of reps in the early going. On opening weekend, they run-ruled Elon on Saturday. So you lost 2 defensive innings right there. Then a travel curfew came into play on Sunday. You lost another. Then the first midweek of the year against McNeese got canceled. So out of your first 36 defensive innings you planned on playing, you lost 12 of them. So it's still a rather unproven group, and they were forced to get as many guys some reps, live bullets as possible. Saw Aiden Sims get a start for A&M against Texas State. He looked solid. Saw Caden McCoy look pretty solid, except for the one mistake that ended up being the 3-run homer in the third. And then guys like Grant Cunningham was good. Luke Jackson was good. The back end of the bullpen in the game on Tuesday night was not the problem, and those are going to be pieces that A&M's going to be able to trust moving forward. And you're going to have to start trusting those guys in big spots as soon as this weekend when you go to the Astros Foundation College Classic in Houston. So bullpen, a little bit more of a concern just because it's a lot of unknown for now. I still trust what I've seen from the offense in the past. I think that track record, eventually wins out and they get back to playing baseball the way we expect them to.
Now, Richard, you mentioned the upcoming schedule, the Astros Foundation College Classic taking place this weekend. And while it still is early in the season, it is crazy to think about. We've only got 2 weekends before SEC play gets going. So it's like it's early in the season, but there's certainly a sense of urgency. Texas A&M will take on Arizona, Oklahoma State, and Rice. So 3 formidable opponents, but 3 opponents you feel like Texas A&M should be able to handle. But I feel like at this point, Richard, how it looks is just as important, if not even more important, than what the final result is. What do you most want to see? What do you guys most want to see from A&M going into this weekend?
Man, I want to see him play clean baseball first and foremost. Don't look at the fielding percentage. It's right around like 965 or maybe 955, something like that. They've made 11 errors through 7 games. Granted, they played clean baseball against Texas State, although my dad used to tell me there's no defense against a walk. So the pitching staff didn't do him many favors on the other side. But I want to see him play clean baseball, man. And I want to see the guys in established bullpen roles find some success, find some reason to be confident before moving into Alabama just 2 weeks away. Because I trust this offense to get things going. Maybe a change of scenery, getting on the road helps them feel comfortable, relax, really get the juices flowing and actually be around the teammates away from College Station, actually get some bonding going on. Hopefully that helps the on-field product as well. But yeah, I want to see clean defense. And I want to see some reason to, be optimistic about the bullpen and the offense. And I think they're certainly capable of that. I haven't dug into Arizona, Oklahoma State. I actually watched a Rice game last weekend, but I was rooting for extra innings. It had absolutely nothing to do with the Rice Owls or the outcome against the USC Trojans. So I don't know anything about those 3 teams yet. But as you said, man, those are 3 teams that are going to provide for more formidable challenges to the Aggies. But they're 3 teams that A&M has a significantly more talented roster than. Although this is baseball, brother. It's not always about the best team. It's about the team that plays the best.
Richard Zane at TexAgs. Richard, finally, before we get you out of here again, a lot of great Aggies tuning into this conversation, watching. They're worried. They're concerned. We joked before we got going. There's a lot of them on the ledge right now. Take a moment. Talk them off the ledge, man. Tell everybody why it's going to be okay for Texas A&M baseball.
Because this is baseball, right? Like we're 7 games into the year, and we want to go ahead and 7 games. Not only are we 7 games into the new year, we're 7 games into a new era in Aggieland, and people are running for the hills. It's way too early. You can't watch this game the way you do football or the game that's going on behind me, basketball. There's too many games. There's 49 more of these in the regular season for the Aggies. So calm down. Just enjoy the ride that we're on. They're going to settle in. They're going to find that rhythm, and they're going to be able to be one of the best teams in the country, one of the ones that we expect them to be. So I think it's way too early to, if your panic meter is above a 4, take a chill pill, right? It's way too early to be that concerned about Michael Earley and these Ags.
Richard Zane, managing editor of TexAgs. Richard, it's always a pleasure, man. I appreciate you taking the time. And just in case folks have been living under a rock, let them know where they can find you and all you guys' great work over at TexAgs.
Of course. Check us out, TexAgs.com. Become a premium subscriber. Also, my username on Twitter, X, what are we calling it these days? Richard Zane 32. I do a bunch of live tweeting during games. So I'll see you guys down in Houston this weekend for the Astros Foundation College Classic. And, yeah, man, I'm excited to get to conference play and see if I can get my way on a plane to go somewhere else and see these Aggies on the road outside of the state of Texas.
Richard, you're the man. I appreciate you taking the time. Let's definitely do it again soon.
Of course, Chris. Thanks, brother.